This is season 8 for us, right?
I actually don't know.
I think it is. I better check that real quick before I say it on here. Yeah, season 8. It's wild. All right, welcome back to the Middle Tech Podcast. You got Logan Jones here, opening up season 8 of the podcast, which is crazy to think about that we've been doing this for, I guess that means about 8 years now. As we do when we open up a new season, we just wanted to take some time to give some personal updates. Evan and I both have some significant life updates that we wanted to just make listeners aware of, and then also some updates for what we plan for 2025. So what you can expect from us as a brand and as a company. So today it's just Evan and I talking about those updates, both for ourselves and the company. We're excited to fill you in on all of that. So before we dive into the podcast, as we do, we just want to get a quick word from our sponsors. Before we highlight our sponsors, we'd just like to state that the views and content shared on this platform do not necessarily reflect those of our show sponsors. That being said, Middle Tech is supported by KY Innovation, the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development's Office of Entrepreneurship. KY Innovation exists to support and develop Kentucky's startup ecosystem, and we are proud to be supported by an organization whose mission aligns so closely with ours. If you are a founder building in Kentucky, you need to check out the resources that KY Innovation has to offer. You can find more information by clicking the link in our show notes or going to kyinnovation.com. Middle Tech is also supported by Huntsicker, an impact venture studio based in Lexington, Kentucky. Huntsicker is creating companies out of the ordinary by founding and funding the next generation of purpose-driven startups. They partner with founders to create indispensable solutions to the world's most fundamental problems. On a quarterly basis, they host an invite-only intimate gathering called Fireside Convos, where attendees representing a wide network of stakeholders in the regional entrepreneurial ecosystem discuss timely topics, including the role of AI for startups out of Kentucky and the challenges of identifying and attracting talent. To be considered as a guest, visit huntsicker.co/fireside to apply. All right, Evan, season 8, we are back. It was a nice little break from recording. I got to do some strategy, had our retreat. You've been hard at work building your company, so good to be back behind the mic, even though we have been recording here and there in the downtime. Excited to be kicking off season 8. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, it is. Season 8 sounds surreal, given kind of where we started and where it's at now. So it's been quite the journey. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, getting close to that decade, getting close to season 10. That'll be a fun celebration when we cross that milestone. But as we have done in years past, like I said in the intro, we just wanted to give some personal updates, talk a little bit about what to expect from us as a company and as a brand in 2025. So I'd like to just start by talking about some of your updates, because you had an awesome 2024 and you're geared up for an awesome 2025. So I want to give the listeners some insight into what you're working on. I believe when we did this opening episode last year, you had just started kind of tinkering around on a new company at the beginning of 2024. So just kind of fill us in on what that past year looked like for you. And let's start talking about Valent.
Yeah, so coming out of my last company, Simba, I took a break in the last 2-3 months of the year and just traveled, researched artificial intelligence and just relaxed, building a company, and all that's involved with it is insanely exhausting, especially as it comes to an end. And so I took that break and spent the majority of my free time studying, large language models, AI in general as a field. And I had several pain points that I had on a list that I wanted to address. And so the past year, 2024, was spent with my co-founder, Ryan Rudd. Really, in the first half of the year, I would describe it as, much more of a lab where we had these pain points we wanted to solve. And we were really tinkering with AI and beginning to do a lot of discovery with early adopters of AI to see, how our ideas were landing with them, and, showing prototypes and designing prototypes. And about halfway through the year, we really hit a stride where it became clear what we were going to build and go to market with initially. And I would describe that as a collaboration platform that brings people, a company's data, and AI into a single collaborative hub that allows them to accelerate revenue. And the industries that we're targeting are really heavy document-driven industries, government contracting, engineering, professional services, consulting, construction. Those are all industries that have revenue that is completely document driven. It's RFPs, RFIs, RFQs, bill of materials, scope of works, regulation, legislation, all those industries, they sit behind all those documents. And so we picked a couple that we really wanted to focus on, which were, I would say, technology-driven government contractors and engineering firms. And so we narrowed on that. And the last half of this year was really building out the MVP of that product we're going to take to market. We're targeting larger companies. And we worked really closely with several that are small, large, and even up to $1 billion of revenue, and just kind of sat with them and really designed a product around, their processes, what pain points they were having along those processes. And we launched Valent at the beginning of this year in January of 2025. Raised a round of venture capital last year, and that was in the form of friends and family. First tranche of a pre-seed, which was about $400,000, and then we raised about another $750,000 in the last half of the year that closed around November timeframe. So we raised just over about $1 million to build out the team and go after the market we're targeting, and aiming to have our first paying customers here very soon, which were helping us design the product all this time. So super busy, built an amazing team, really talented team here in Lexington, one individual in Louisville who makes the trip to Lexington twice a week, really prioritizing in-person work. So I've just been really busy in the office and building out product, and it's been really exciting. Really exciting AI innovation is happening, and we're trying to stay at the forefront of it. But just as much of a research project it is like building a business right now.
Yeah. I put out a LinkedIn post whenever you guys kind of officially launched Valent and went public and put a website out there, just talking about, obviously you and I are roommates. We've been building Middle Tech together for a long time. We've been friends for even longer. So it's been really awesome just to kind of have a front row seat to watching this turn from an idea into exploring kind of the initial thesis that you had around it, and then working with design partners to turn it into what it is today. And also wanted to mention, just because I think it's kind of adds to the cool story of Middle Tech and where all this is going, I actually had the opportunity to put a small angel check in Valent to be able to just be along for the ride, which is super exciting for me. And it just feels very full circle with Middle Tech and with everything that you work on. Obviously I have a tremendous amount of admiration for you as an entrepreneur. So watching you build Simba, and then watching how you've formed the company for Valent has just been, like having a front row seat to watching something really, really special happen. So I know I'm super excited to watch where this company takes you. And to lead into some of my personal updates, I'm actually getting to work alongside with your team in a way, working out of your office right now. So talking about some of the personal updates for me, if you've been paying attention on LinkedIn or have talked to me in person recently, you likely know that I have left Fooji, which was the company that I joined about this time last year. So was there for a year, helping them make the transition to a software as a service revenue model, and just couldn't stay any longer. Decided that I needed to give Middle Tech and DevelopLex my full-time attention and go full-time on those businesses. So it's a big update from me. Like I mentioned, I'm getting to my office space is now actually working out of the same office that Evan and his team are working from, which is a good thing to kind of just get myself out of the house rather than working nonstop by myself from the condo. But essentially we got the company to a point where we had talked about it for such a long time that if we wanted to see it become something more, it just needed somebody's full-time attention on it. And it's something that I've been passionate about since the time I joined in 2019 after graduating college. I've put a ton of blood, sweat, and tears into this company and have a lot of passion for it. And so it finally just came to the point where, it was kind of now or never. I don't have a wife. I don't have kids. I don't have a ton of financial obligations. So we wanted to give it a shot. So super excited about that as well. So exciting updates on both ends here.
Yeah, no, I think it's been awesome to see, you get involved, super early. I mean, basically from, within the first year of Middle Tech, and the immediate value that you brought from the production side, because I think Nate and I really needed that help to make it more official and just have more bandwidth, because podcasting and the work it takes to do it consistently for this many years is a lot. And it's been our part-time things for this long, and to see kind of the trajectory of you just getting involved early and continuing out more ways to add value, and then eventually seeing how passionate you were. I mean, it was just kind of, guaranteed at some point you were going to figure out a way to bring it to the next level. And I think this is going to be that time. I think it's been kind of like a coiled spring that, we've proven that there is definitely a demand for more community, more media, and modern media to shed light on what's happening, here in Kentucky from a technology, innovation, and economic development standpoint. And especially among young people, I think that we're caught in a time between traditional news and print and social media, and it's happened so fast that younger generations have been, left out of quality local journalism. We have X, we have Facebook, and I think you definitely are seeing the opportunity that there's a big play of young people building quality, high produced media, and I think you going full time will allow us to realize the high produced part, because we've been making media and we've been filling that void and have kind of, absorbed a lot of that market share of, where young people go to learn about this stuff. But we need to take another step and start to position ourselves as, higher production value. And I think you have some awesome ideas and visions on that front. You're already doing that in January. So yeah, it's super exciting update, and excited to see what happens with that. You're definitely the right person on the team to go do that full time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I now have been working full time on the business for like 3 weeks now, and it is pretty wild just how much more you can accomplish when you're focusing on one thing kind of 100%. That was, I think, kind of the thing that really started bothering me throughout 2024, is I just felt, I described it as being like fragmented or fractured amongst multiple different things that my brain would want to focus on. It's like I had a full-time job, and then I had Middle Tech and DevelopLex, and then some of these extracurricular things that I was involved in. And really what I decided I wanted to do in 2025 was start focusing on narrowing down the things that I work on, rather than just kind of being average at multiple things. I'd rather be amazing at one or two. And that's really the thinking behind me making that jump and going full-time into the business. So obviously a lot of figuring it out ahead of us. We've gotten the business to a point where we can at least sustain a single full-time employee to an extent. But there's a whole lot of figuring it out ahead of us, just from operations as a company and kind of where we're headed. But we've got some good plans in front of us, and some stuff that I'm really excited to work on. And so just leading into kind of what to expect from us in 2025, one of the things that I'm not sure how aware our listeners of, but we hope to make you all more aware of in the coming year, is our sister brand, DevelopLex. So if you've not heard of DevelopLex, we essentially started that brand using the same playbook that we did for Middle Tech. So Evan, I'll actually kick that over to you. This was kind of your brainchild, that you noticed the same sort of gap that was there for Middle Tech, except in the real estate space. So just real briefly, kind of talk about why you decided that it was necessary to start DevelopLex as a brand.
Yeah, well, Weston Lockhart and I, got coffee. He actually reached out because of Middle Tech. He was a fan of Middle Tech, saw what I was just describing, which was he was a young person wanting to learn more about, the community and what businesses were being started, and more about innovation. So he reached out and said, hey, what you're doing with Middle Tech is really cool. And we stayed friends after that. And then I was beginning my real estate journey at that time, and so was he. And so I noticed that the market really needed the exact same thing that we were doing for Middle Tech, which was I was starting to buy properties, beginning to invest. I was shadowing, people that were in the industry, just because I wanted to learn. And so as I did with, technology and building businesses, it's very, learn from existing experts in the field and self-taught. And so the self-taught part was hard, because real estate's such a local game. You can't learn real estate by studying what's going on in Miami if you're in Lexington. It's just so different. And so I noticed that whenever I tried to find local media or local people to speak with about real estate, there was no content out there at all. And so, Weston seemed interested in podcasts and was obviously in the field. And so we just kind of were like, let's record a few episodes and do like just like a test. And we did 5 episodes. We got the top 5 real estate developers in the city basically for those first 5 episodes with the help of Ross, and we recorded. And so it was him and I on those first kind of 5 or so episodes. And then we brought in Ross, who has a ton of domain experience on the development side with his time at Web Communities, and now he's down in Atlanta doing really big projects. And so that was started out of, again, a need very similarly to Middle Tech, and same kind of trajectory. We just grow, bring on more people, start doing events, build that community, build up the social channels. And I would say, the trajectory of DevelopLex has been much faster than I think Middle Tech is. The Middle Tech market is much smaller than DevelopLex's, but they've mirrored each other up to this point. And I think, the way that we create synergies between the two is, where a lot of our thinking is going to go in the years to come.
Yeah. And so just to, continue on talking about DevelopLex and Middle Tech and, kind of where the synergies are between those two, where we're looking for 2025 as, an overall company. So for those that, are not aware, DevelopLex, Middle Tech are all kind of under the same umbrella of company and are run by the same team and the same content creators, same operations people. And so what we're looking at as a company is taking more of a, kind of a broader economic development media strategy, finding synergies between, innovation, the local economies, and real estate to try and capture that larger picture of economic development. So, we have a strong conviction around how local communities and technology will become more interwoven. We want to make that connection with quality media and events. So that's a lot of what 2025 is going to look like for us, is trying to find the alignment between those two brands, whether it's on the real estate side, on the innovation side, or some sort of crossover between the two. As far as Middle Tech goes, a lot of what we're leaning into on the Middle Tech side of things is more highly produced content and really focusing on the economic impact of innovation on Kentucky's economy. So that doesn't necessarily only mean startups. We're still going to highlight startups very heavily and highlight founders very heavily, but we're now wanting to start highlighting kind of later stage companies and even much larger companies than that, that are having a big economic impact on the state of Kentucky, that also, of course, have that innovation kind of theme to it. So just to kind of tease some of the episodes that we'll be releasing early in the season here on a very kind of highly produced sort of type of content. One of them is Valvoline, which I know you might hear and be like, what does Valvoline have to do with innovation? It is, their headquarters is based here in Kentucky. They're actually very involved in some of these AI data centers. So that is one of the early episodes we'll be releasing. And then, of course, we have a very exciting episode that we'll be releasing maybe even before the Valvoline episode with Governor Beshear, talking about economic development in the state of Kentucky. So just taking that overall kind of look at economic development in Kentucky, that kind of broader approach to that, how innovation plays into that, how local economies play into that. And I think that'll just set us up for some really exciting growth as a company and as individual brands. Evan, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that. But yeah, that's what we've been talking about for all of the off season and planning for. And that's kind of what I'm going full time to start executing on.
Yeah, I think where we're at as a business is, we've proven that there is a business case here, which is, again, this media for modern consumption. And we started with first principles, and let's start with founders. Let's start with people that are building companies from the ground up in the early stages. Let's build a reputation there. And it's mirrored, I think, our own career trajectories. I really kind of started Middle Tech because I was a founder, thirsting for that content, that media locally to learn from in my own community, and it didn't exist. And so, started solving a problem that I experienced very acutely, and just starting with first principles, we said, well, if we highlight founders and do a much better job of that, then we might encourage other people to be founders and be inspired. And we've done a great job of that. And now I think when we look forward into the future, it's how do we begin expanding? And that's how you start to get into companies like Valvoline and say, well, one day, well into the past, somebody said, I'm going to start, an oil company. And now look at a multi-billion-dollar international company that, just got acquired by the largest oil company in the world in Saudi Arabia. And they're right in our backyard of Kentucky. And that's a story that, is not being told very well in Kentucky, especially how they're getting into AI and data centers. And it's just media like that we can begin to expand into that has a broader impact on Kentucky than maybe just early stage founders. I think that's the most important thing is early stage founders. And it's still, at the root of what we do in very first principles. By going forward, if we're going to expand, we have to do some of these larger stories and companies that have impacts on thousands of people that somebody might have much more of an understanding when they hear the name and be interested from a standpoint of it's just a well-known brand. And so that's how I look at expanding middle tech, and then going forward with DevelopLex. I think, over the next couple of years, we'll find another inflection point with that, which is, we've really taken the market in Lexington when it comes to development and real estate. We are the go-to source for media and news about the real estate and development community. And so how do we move that to other cities and begin to expand, I think is going to be part of the play there. So we're at like expansion mode. I would describe that as, where I think we are. And that's super exciting. And I think we couldn't have done that unless somebody went full time. It's just not
Right.
Possible. And so I think that's how I think about, what this upcoming year is setting the groundworks for that expansion.
Yep, exactly. And part of how, what we view as what we're providing through these brands is also events. And so we want to just touch on, how events fit into this whole strategy as well. One of the things that we've said for a long time, Evan, is, media is kind of the permissionless way to grow a community. Anybody can come and find that media and consume that media. It's the way you really grow the ecosystem. But events is how you deepen and strengthen the relationships of the ecosystem. So once we had really established an audience across both of those brands, Middle Tech and DevelopLex, our next move was to start getting into events. And we really, without having anyone full time, we just kind of tested the waters with those. I'm not going to say we didn't execute them great, but they were very much just tests. And even though they might not have been super highly curated and produced events, we saw great feedback from those. And so that kind of tells us, okay, let's really lean into that and find ways to make events that, are really worth people's time, and in some cases even worth paying for, as we've now started seeing with DevelopLex. And so on the event side of things, really what we're leaning into there is partnering with existing events to bring more attention, production, and programming to those. So for those who are aware of the Hub network on the Middle Tech side of things, on the startup side of the world of Kentucky, what we're doing there is partnering with some of those different hubs to where we can host events in places like Louisville. We just hosted one in Elizabethtown. We'll be looking to host some in Northern Kentucky as well. And so just really leaning into partnerships and working alongside some of those other organizations to be able to, see different parts of our community across the state. The other one that I thought has been great, Evan, I want you to talk to a little bit about this one, is our AI meetups and the AI workshop that we've started doing. So I think that's really unique because obviously you're a founder building in the AI space. So it kind of gives a little bit of subject matter expertise. And we've seen some incredible feedback from those. So just talk a little bit about your thinking behind starting those and how those have gone so far.
Yeah. I mean, as somebody that was beginning to build and really deep in the weeds of the AI space, noticed again that there were other people in the community that were looking to meet like-minded people working on the same thing as them. And so we're using our audience that we had already built with Middle Tech. We launched a couple of events just as tests, got the programming down, learned how we want to do the discussions and the presentations, and then we opened it up to a larger audience and kind of went public with it. And our first 3 meetups averaged probably 40 people at each one with little promotion. We would only promote them like a week ahead of time. maybe a week and a half at most. And so this upcoming year, leaning much more into that, which is this broader play on whether you are a startup founder or somebody building an innovative company, or you're in real estate, or you work on campus at UK and you're a teacher. AI is going to touch everybody this upcoming year, whether they like it or not. They're not going to be able to avoid it. And so all these companies, I think in Kentucky and especially here in Lexington where we're starting, are going to want their people to be educated on AI. And so now that we kind of have these tests up underneath us, we'll start partnering with some industries to do these AI events and meetups, more nichely focused on them, so we can start to get a larger community around how to adopt and use AI effectively. This is something that, is really important and the state should get behind, because AI is going to move really fast. And if we as a state and a community don't educate ourselves and get involved and learn from each other, we're not setting ourselves up for economic development. And we have to get behind it. And so that's kind of what we started doing, is these meetups, and they'll turn into more formal events on, how people, industries, and businesses can adopt AI and use it in their everyday lives. And we'll have guest speakers, we'll have programming and demos, educational sessions. We've been doing educational workshops in Eastern Kentucky on this as our first one. And we'll start to expand into that. And so that's just us trying to make sure that Kentucky doesn't get left behind on that front, and we create a community and a place for people to go in relation to that. And so super important work. Obviously, I'm really in deep with it, but I think everybody needs to start to get curious about it, and really encourage everybody to come out to the next one. But that's been really fun to see kind of the reception of that early.
Yeah. And just to differentiate between, we talked about an AI meetup and an AI workshop, and kind of our approach between the two. AI meetups, open to anybody that wants to come to them. They're free events. We essentially bring up people that are building in the space. So typically building a company of some sort or a product. They talk about their approach to it, problems that they're facing, challenges they're facing, how they've gotten around it, just sharing kind of best practices. So that's where you can kind of go and hear from people in the community that are building using this technology. Also just a great kind of community building sort of event. Good time to meet other people that are interested in it at all different levels. The AI workshop, that's where we're approaching, trying to really bring people up to speed that might not have had much exposure other than just all of the kind of talk that's gone on in the media around AI. So people that, maybe they tried using ChatGPT, maybe they've not had much luck with it, but want to be able to ask questions to somebody like Evan, who's actually building in the space and can give thoughtful answers around how AI might impact their field, or just be able to answer general questions around how they can actually use it in their everyday lives and in their jobs. So two very, very cool events that I'm excited to see us kind of expand more. Both of the early events that we've done with those have been a lot of fun and gotten some great feedback. So definitely looking forward to leaning into those a little bit more as well. One of the other updates, just to kind of close us out on what to expect from us in 2025, we will be moving the podcast to a bi-weekly cadence. So as we really look to increase the production value of the content that we put out on the podcast feed, at least, we're going to move that to bi-weekly, just so that we're really allowing ourselves to focus on that quality of content, and also not just saturating our content feed with episode after episode. So you can look for bi-weekly episodes from us, but we are also leaning into social content. As we've done, that's just where we reach a majority of people, is through our social channels, so LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We'll see if TikTok sticks around, but that'll be kind of how we're changing up our content strategy. So yeah, anything else that is on your mind, Evan, that you want to make people aware of before you sign this one off?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered the big ones.
All right. Well, good deal. Well, we will wrap it up there. Be looking for some really cool episodes to come out here in the next few weeks from us. And until then, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next time.